Did you ever realize that there was a problem with your pattern of thinking, with your mindset, with thoughts that you keep repeating that are holding you back from going where you want to go? In this video, I want to talk to you guys about some mindset shifts that can help you break through. And these are simple, tactical things. I wanted to help people understand, like a lot of us know that we have bad patterns of thinking these negative thoughts on repeat. And I want to help you guys flip the script on a couple of them so you can start to make this shift with a bunch of different ones in your life that come up. Maybe there's negative self-beliefs that you have not regarding to business, but I want to give you guys a couple examples. And so I'm going to share 5 with you that have been pretty transformational for me, and I hope that they help you guys as well. And I hope you're able to take these 5 and the logic from them and the way that it flips the script and apply them to other areas of your life. Okay, so I have my notes over here, and I'm going to jump right in. So one thing that I wanted to talk about before I go into the 5 is this idea. Myron Golden, I believe it was Myron, talked about, you want to say old things to new people, I believe was his phrase. And then he had this example, which was really interesting. He was one of like a minister or this pastor, right? And he's giving this sermon, and he gives a sermon on week 1, and it's like, okay, cool. And then the second week, it's the same exact sermon. And then on the third week, it's the same sermon. And then someone from the parish or the church or whatever comes in and they're like, hey, you realize you've been giving the same sermon for a really long time. And the pastor responds and says, yeah, when you guys implement the stuff from that sermon, I'm going to teach you guys a new one. And so I say that because a lot of these principles may have been things you've heard from other videos. They may be things you've heard from my videos. But I really hope that you'll take the time to think about these a little bit slower, process them, and start to be aware of the 70,000 thoughts you have each day, and start to take an inventory of, are they serving you, are they not, and where are you going? Okay, so number 1 is jealousy. So jealousy, that mindset this was a huge shift for me recently. I would see people around me that felt like they were going so much faster than me, and in terms of maybe it was relationships, maybe it was work and finances, maybe it was housing and kids and just life. Maybe it was things, maybe it was emotions, but I just felt a sense of jealousy over other people, in my relation to them. And so this is so powerful. I want you guys to just stay with me for a second. If you can flip jealousy for, if it's possible for them, it's possible for me. If it's possible for them to have the family and the this and the that, it's possible for me. If it's possible for them to have the Ferrari, it's possible for me. If it's possible for them to have the big business with success and 500 employees, it's possible for me. And I think if you can trade jealousy for that mindset shift, flip really, that you'll have a more peaceful life. It'll be a burden off of your shoulders, and you can catch yourself when you're starting to feel jealous or envious of somebody else. And now you have this empowering mindset that can help you move forward and start to grow and learn. Okay, so the next one is number 2. I'm so far away from the thing. I'm so far away from my goal. I'm so far away from fill in the blank. I feel like this a lot, where I am in terms of getting my business started, in terms of, it always just seems like the goalpost is so far away. And I think a bunch of people, I think probably Jim Rohn or Tony Robbins said something to the effect of, we underestimate what we can do in a year, or we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5. And so this one I talked about in a previous video. I have a little bit of a framework for this. Instead of thinking I'm so far away from the thing, I like to think, what are the next 5 things that I can do? What are the next 5 things that I can do to move my thing forward, to move me closer to my goal, and maybe it's 3, maybe it's 1. What's the next 1 thing? What's the next 3 things? 5 is an arbitrary number, but I'm going to talk about the number of things and tasks in a later one. But instead of feeling so far away from, realize you're probably not as far as you think, number 1, and start to focus all of your energy solely on what's the next bit, byte, thing, task that you can do that's going to move you closer. Start creating a plan and a strategy around that, and I think that'll help you. Number 3, it's impossible for someone like me. It's impossible for someone like me who's poor to become wealthy. It's impossible for someone like me who's morbidly obese to get in shape. It's impossible for someone like me to fill in the blank of whatever the goal is that you'd like to achieve. This one's a cool one because, number one, Ed Mylett talks about this a lot in his book and also in his podcasts, of the things that make you uniquely unqualified are actually the things that qualify you. So your flaws, your weaknesses, the things that are blemishes for you are actually the things that qualify you to help other people. And so his example is so powerful. He talks about his father. He wakes up in the middle of the night and he like shakes his wife and he's like, oh my, Ed Mylett this is, shakes his wife. He's like, oh my God, like this one person saved my dad. But in order to save my dad from alcoholism, that person was an alcoholic. And so the thing that disqualified them from achieving certain things in society actually qualified them to not only change Ed Mylett's father's life, but then Ed Mylett's life and all the people that Ed Mylett has impacted. And so a huge mind shift is knowing that like nothing is impossible for you, number one. You can do anything as long as you're persistent and whatever. And then the other piece is, what can I do that others are unwilling to do? So you're trading this thing is impossible for someone like me to your competitive advantage. And that could be your flaws, or it could be, what can I do that others are unwilling to do? So for me, I look at Alex Hormozi, and he's someone that I want to model. I'd like to do some of the things that Alex is doing, right? Starting multiple companies. He has this portfolio of companies, and he's just been really successful in the business world. And he's also trying to help other entrepreneurs that are kind of further along, right? They have, a couple million in revenue, and he wants to work with those type of people. And so for me, I'm like, what's the competitive advantage I can have on Alex? I'm not going to be able to go to the gym I can go to the gym to the same extent that he can. I don't know that it's as important for me. I don't know that I need as big body and muscles as he has. But what I can do is I've seen his diet. I see what he eats. And a lot of it's like pretty garbage, like junky yogurts, eating out, like takeout meals, all this stuff. And I don't know if it's because he's younger than me or whatever, but I am really focused on eating foods that are high for brain quality. And so I have like a brain diet that I follow. And so what I can do is, maybe I don't have all the other things. Maybe I don't have the gym and all the other things that he has. And I certainly don't have the experience. But I can start to carve out a competitive advantage for myself. And this is only one right now. I'm sure I'm going to find other ways that I can create a competitive advantage for myself moving forward. But the one thing that it seems like he's unwilling to do is eat crazy, super healthy brain foods. He likes to eat things that are convenient for him so that he can spend more of his time working. Well, for me, that's not logical. I'd rather spend my time eating things that are going to give me a higher cognitive boost, higher cognitive performance, and also extend my life, presumably. And so what are the things that other people are unwilling to do? Instead of focusing on what's impossible for someone like you, which is a fallacy and incorrect in and of itself, focus on what other people are unwilling to do that you would be willing to do to create a competitive advantage for yourself. The next one is, I talked about this a little bit earlier. So when I was saying I'm so far away from whatever it is, focus on these 5 things. This one kind of flips that a little bit because, let me just jump into it. I need to do this. I see a lot of people get stuck here. I need to do this and this and this. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to get my LLC, and I have to do this and I have to do that. And I know I said earlier, like, you want to pick a couple things to start with. You want to pick a manageable list of what are the couple things that I can start with so you don't feel so far away from that thing, because you actually aren't. In this model for number 4, instead of saying I need to do this and this and this and this and this, just hyper focus on doing one thing at a time. A lot of people do everything and they're really doing nothing. A lot of people try to please everyone and they please nobody. They develop relationships with nobody. So instead of being all over the place like a sloppy mess, just focus on doing one thing well, right? A great analogy for this is like, pretend that you eat steak, pretend you eat meat, and you really want a good steak. Where are you going to go? Golden Corral, who does everything and is a sloppy mess, or are you going to go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse? I would probably go to the steakhouse if I want a great piece of meat, right? So instead of being all over the place, focus on just doing one thing really well. Focus on, and then you can go through and have your list, right? So maybe the first thing is like creating your your LLC, creating your business model, right? How are you going to sell your first thing? How does that feed into your next product? Like, just focus on doing one thing at a time instead of 5,000 different things. Focus on that hyper intentionally. If your goal is to create wealth, if your goal is to create jobs for other human beings so that they can employ, you can employ people and they can feed their families, if that's something you're passionate about like I am, focus on that, and then you work backwards, right? What's the kind of company that would need to happen for? What kind of products and services and things would it need to sell? And just work backwards until you get to that very first one thing that you can start with to get there. So you kind of create a roadmap. Don't be all over the place. Focus on one thing. Hyper focus on one thing. The last one, number 5, is I just need to launch X product. I just need to launch this product. I just need to do this. I'm feeling this one personally myself. I feel like for me, I want to launch it just to learn, because I know the first thing that I do, it's probably going to fail. It's probably going to have I'm going to mess up sending ad traffic to it, or whatever I do, I'm going to make all these mistakes. And so I want to get the learning out of the way. But instead of having the mindset of I just need to launch X product, or I just need to do this product related thing, why don't you flip it into, again, this is working backwards, but who is my dream customer? Talked about this in a previous video, and a lot of companies make the mistake of starting with the product first, and you can actually, maybe you'll be successful, maybe you'll get there, but I've seen a lot of people, and I've read a decent amount of books where it seems like people have created the product, they acquire the customers, they have money, and then they hate the customer that they serve. And so instead, why not focus on who's the dream customer? Maybe the dream customer is somebody that has a disease that you have. Maybe the dream customer is somebody that has a background similar to what you have. Maybe the customer is someone you don't relate to at all, but it's a family member or someone that you really love and admire, and you want to create a better experience, a solution, a tool, a thing for someone like that. And so who is your dream customer? And what do they look like? Where do they live on the internet? Where do they spend their time? Where do they spend their money? What problems do they have? And then figure out what products might fit in that could solve them. I think a lot of times it's logical to start with someone that's similar to you, someone that you understand really well. And so for me, in the stealth startup that I'm working on right now, I'm focusing a lot in the health space, right? So I talked a little bit earlier about my, the thing that I'm willing to do that Alex Hormozi is not, is I'm willing to have a diet that's focused solely around longevity and on cognitive performance, right? And so what's the dream customer for me is like someone that's like myself, hopefully someone that's, entrepreneurial, they have a high drive and they have a high desire to succeed. They want to find any competitive advantage that they can. And so what's the product that would serve them, right? And so figure out what your dream customer looks like instead of just figuring out what the product looks like and launching the product and doing all that. Because if you're obsessed with that customer and you understand them really well, more importantly, you'll be able to pivot. And so when you need to make changes or you need to modify things, you'll be able to pivot better because you have a high EQ for what their life feels like, what they go through in a day. Instead of launching with the product when the product sucks and it doesn't sell well, it can be hard. You can get stuck and you can feel defensive when people give you feedback. So I hope these 5 things help you, and I would, again, try to implement these in other areas of your life. These are just 5 examples, but you can do this with just about anything. So if you notice yourself having negative patterns and thoughts, try to flip it on its head and find the inverse or the opposite of what that negative thought process has been, and see if you can use that to motivate yourself to get to your next level.